Get good, good, get good, good, and goody, good, and good. I like that with your host. Can you read it? I don't even know if you can read it. You might be able to read it. Welcome back, viewer. This is the AntiClimactic NonShow, which has the twin capacities of being without any climax. It just kind of ends a lot of times. And it's a non-show, so it's not a show. So your expectations should be very low when you enter the room in advance. Because this is the AntiClimactic NonShow with your host. Now, can you read this is the question, viewer, since you're the only viewer here. Can you read this with your host if it's up here? That is the question now being asked. I love doing screwed up letters. I like the feeling of autopintura. Can you read that with your host? It needs to be bigger and tighter. But that's a test page. But my point is still, I love doing crude drawings and crude lettering and autopintura, as they call it in Portuguese or Spanish, I guess as well. Hand paint. The hand shows, and if you get perfection in there, it just stops being... you know, you can get robots now to do it, as they say. And there's something to me aesthetically pleasing about, you know, doing things like, it doesn't have to be perfect, as they say. And in fact, I lean toward those things which have, which border on that, rather than achieve it. Can you read that? Can you read the with your host over here? No, it's goofy looking. And I can go taller. That's a nice measuring device, though. Not much happening on the show today, if I'm honest. It's Friday. Today is the 10th episode of the AntiClimactic NonShow. It has been an excellent week of programming. You can go back and look at the stories we covered. We're using some tactics that I've used for many, many years, and the result is that you get very fresh content by approaching things this way. I hope that the mix is some fresh stuff that's just maybe short but really, oh my gosh, this is happening, and some analytical stuff, which is the long-form material that I'm trying to produce here as well. Reading longer pieces because there's no venue for them out there. And when you tell people to read them, the reality is very few people do. We live in an era where literacy itself is changing, I would say. The literacy is becoming... visual. You know, they even talked about visual literacy for a while there, which was kind of a weird thing to say. I am a very voluminous and fast reader. I read very fast, and I can consume way more by reading than by going, click, here's a YouTube story. I have to wait 8 minutes while they tell me it, or whatever. That doesn't work for me in terms of content speed, like voluminously putting content in my head. In the time I watched one 8-minute video, for example, I could have read 6 different views of a story. Now you couple that with, I'm 51 years old, so I've been, you know, covering global stories on history and politics for 37 years minimum. For almost 40 years I've been reading the papers, reading the magazines, thinking about culture everywhere, traveling. You know, and when I do travel, we talked yesterday about methodologies in studio and methodologies on the road. And one of the things on the road, one of the on-the-road methodologies, I think, is trying very hard to stay in touch with things you learn about a place because you lived there, even after you don't live there anymore. So, I lived in Taiwan many, many years ago, but part of me always thinks about stories that are about Taiwan, or Japan, neighborhoods I lived in Japan, or, you know, India, or New York City, or Los Angeles, or any of these places. Even though I'm not there currently, I stay in touch with them using this methodology, this kind of way of looking at the papers there. And, you know, another cool thing to do is now we live in a time when all the weather is just like satellite vision of weather everywhere is possible constantly, which is like just staggering. So I was thinking the other day about how before I call someone somewhere, I'll go just quickly go on my phone and scan and look what's the weather there. I know what the weather is before I call them, right? So I can call them and say, "Hey, man, raining, huh?" But what? Why not just cut straight to the small talk of weather and get it out of the way? Arguably.